stop. Before you sign that mortgage or make that down payment, there's something you need to know. Not every state in America is a smart place to buy a home right now. In fact, some are financial minefields just waiting to explode under unsuspecting buyers. From climate disasters that are sending insurance premiums through the roof, to housing bubbles on the verge of collapse, to places where home values are already sinking fast. Today on the Globe Realty, we're counting down the top 10 states where you shouldn't buy a home right now. And the data is more shocking than you think. Some of these states used to be real estate goldmines. Now, they're ticking time bombs for your finances. So if you're planning to buy a home, or even just thinking about relocating, don't do anything until you see this list. One video could save you tens of thousands of dollars and years of regret. Ready to protect your future? Hit that subscribe button, and let's dive into the countdown. Number 10, South Carolina. It's hard to resist the charm of South Carolina. The palmetto trees swaying under the golden sun, the historic cobblestone streets of Charleston, the idyllic beaches of Hilton Head, it almost feels like the perfect place to call home. Almost. But here's what most buyers don't see until it's too late. South Carolina is becoming one of the most expensive states in the Southeast for homeowners insurance, with annual premiums now averaging over $3,000, and in some coastal areas, twice that amount. Why? Because this picturesque state sits right in the crosshairs of climate chaos. Hurricanes, floods, storm surges, rising sea levels. Insurance companies are either hiking up premiums or pulling out entirely, leaving homeowners scrambling for coverage or going uninsured altogether. That's a risk no buyer should ever take, and while the real estate market still looks hot on paper, cracks are forming. Buyers are overpaying for homes in flood-prone zones, and some banks are even tightening lending standards in high-risk areas. Ask yourself this. Would you still buy a home if your insurance cost was more than your property tax and HOA fees combined? Would you risk a 30-year mortgage in a neighborhood where one major storm could wipe out everything? Don't get caught in the beauty trap. South Carolina is stunning, no doubt. But in 2025, owning a home here could mean paying more for protection than for the property itself. And that's why it kicks off our list of states where buyers should think twice before signing the dotted line. Coming up next, a state where housing prices are skyrocketing, but buyers are fleeing. Number 9, Colorado. Colorado has long been the poster child for the great American dream. Mountain views, booming tech hubs, and healthy living. But behind the postcard-perfect image lies a harsh reality that today's homebuyers can't afford to ignore. In 2025, Colorado has become one of the most financially punishing states to buy a home. Not because of its charm, but in spite of it. Let's talk numbers. The median home price in cities like Denver and Boulder now exceeds $650,000. Homeowners insurance premiums have jumped by over 35% in just the last 2 years, thanks to an explosion in wildfire risk zones. And water shortages, extreme drought, and land use restrictions are quietly changing the value proposition of properties across the state. The result? Even well-off buyers are starting to think twice. And here's the twist. Insurance companies are watching Colorado closely. Some are already pulling back, classifying entire neighborhoods as uninsurable. That makes financing harder to get. That makes resale value drop. That makes your investment fragile. Here's something to chew on. What's the long-term value of a home in a state where your backyard might become a fire zone next summer? Would you pay top dollar for a house that could be impossible to insure by the time you move in? Colorado is breathtaking, no argument there. But in 2025, it's also a financial pressure cooker for anyone trying to build stable home equity. Beautiful views don't always equal smart investments. Next up, a state where buyers aren't just overpaying, they're trapped in a ticking housing bubble. Number 8, Arizona. A few years ago, a young couple from Chicago packed up their lives, chasing the sun-drenched promise of Arizona. They bought a 3-bedroom home in suburban Phoenix, thrilled by the affordability, the low taxes, the endless skies. But in 2025, their American dream is starting to crack under the weight of brutal reality. And they're not alone. Arizona, once a haven for budget-conscious buyers and retirees, is now facing a perfect storm of environmental and financial stress. Temperatures are breaking records, with more than 30 days a year now exceeding 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Wildfire activity is on the rise, with rural properties facing growing evacuation risks. And the elephant in the room? Water. Scarcity. Entire neighborhoods are seeing restrictions on water access, and home values are starting to reflect that uncertainty. What's worse? Insurance premiums are climbing fast. In some high-risk zones, homeowners have seen their insurance bills double in under 18 months. And some insurers? They're leaving altogether. Here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. What good is a cheap house if you can't insure it or even water your lawn? Is that affordable price tag really worth it if you're trading security for climate risk? Arizona may still sparkle in brochures, but behind the glitter is a growing list of concerns that every buyer must face head-on. So before you fall for the desert dream, ask yourself, are you buying a home or buying into a mirage? Stick around. Next up is a state where rising tides aren't just a metaphor. They're swallowing entire neighborhoods. Number 7. Louisiana. The storm didn't come overnight. It started slowly, creeping flood maps, rising insurance bills, unusual weather patterns. But now in 2025, Louisiana is sounding the alarm. And if you're thinking of buying a home here, it's time to listen. Let's be clear. Louisiana is a state of profound beauty and cultural depth. The jazz echoing through New Orleans' French Quarter, the lush bayous, the southern hospitality. It's no wonder people fall in love here. But love doesn't pay when the water rises. Louisiana is one of the most climate-vulnerable states in the U.S. Entire communities are watching their property values erode, not from neglect, but from nature itself. Coastal erosion and flash floods are turning previously livable areas into high-risk zones. And then comes the financial gut punch. Homeowners insurance in Louisiana now averages over $4,000 annually, and that's if you can find coverage at all. Some residents have been pushed into the state-run Louisiana Citizens Program, where premiums are even higher and protections more limited. What's worse? Population decline. Many residents, particularly young families, are fleeing to safer ground. That means more vacant homes, slower appreciation, a shrinking buyer pool. Now ask yourself, would you invest your life savings in a place where insurance is optional for some? Not by choice, but because no company will take the risk. What happens to your home's value when the neighborhood starts emptying out? This isn't fear-mongering, it's reality. And for now, Louisiana stands as a cautionary tale of what happens when climate risk and economic fragility collide. Up next, a state where property taxes are sky-high, but the return on your investment is sinking faster than ever. Number 6. Illinois. Let's cut to the chase. Illinois is one of the most financially punishing states to own property in 2025. On the surface, it might not look so bad. You've got vibrant cities like Chicago, charming suburbs, and affordable home prices compared to coastal states. But underneath it all is a growing financial sinkhole. And homebuyers are falling in fast. Property taxes in Illinois are the second highest in the entire country, averaging over 2.2% of a home's value annually. In real terms, that means a $300,000 home could saddle you with $6,600 every year, just in taxes. And it doesn't stop there. Illinois is facing a population decline, losing over 83,000 residents in just 1 year. That exodus means fewer taxpayers to support a bloated public pension system, which already has billions in unfunded liabilities. Guess who's footing the bill? Homeowners. Meanwhile, in some parts of Chicago and downstate communities, home values are stagnating or declining, even as costs keep climbing. You're not just paying more to live there, you're earning less in equity. Let that sink in. Would you buy a home in a state where your taxes go up, but your property value goes down? What's your plan if the next buyer won't pay what you paid, simply because the taxes scare them off? Illinois may offer big city living and Midwest appeal, but in 2025, it's a financial balancing act tilted against the homeowner. Coming up next, a state where residents are boxed in, trapped by insurance premiums, flooding fears, and a housing market that's shifting under their feet. But wait, before we dive into the top 5, let's pause for a moment. If you found this countdown eye-opening so far, imagine how much more is coming. These aren't just numbers. These are real risks affecting real people just like you. So here's what to do next. Hit that like button if you've learned something new. Subscribe to the Globe Realty so you never miss critical real estate insights like this, and drop a comment below. Which of these states would you still consider buying in, and why? Let's talk about it. Remember, the smartest buyers aren't just chasing deals, they're avoiding traps. Now let's break into the top 5, and trust me, things are about to get even more shocking. Number 5. Texas. Texas was the poster child of the post-pandemic housing boom. Low taxes, business-friendly policies, wide open spaces. Thousands packed up and moved to cities like Austin, Dallas, and Houston, lured by the promise of opportunity and affordability. But in 2025, that narrative is starting to shift, and not in favor of homebuyers. Here's what they won't tell you in those flashy relocation ads. The state's explosive population growth has outpaced infrastructure. That means strained utilities, overcrowded schools, and rising local levies to keep up. In other words, those low taxes you moved for? They're creeping up. Then there's the climate. Texas is no stranger to hurricanes, tornadoes, and extreme heat, but climate volatility has intensified, especially in places like the Gulf Coast and Hill Country. As a result, homeowners insurance in Texas now averages over $4,000 per year, with some carriers refusing to cover areas deemed too risky. And when private insurers pull out, you're left with high-cost state-backed options that offer less protection. In Austin, one of the biggest boomtowns of the last decade, home prices are now correcting sharply after years of overheated demand. Some buyers who purchased at the peak are now underwater and stuck. So, here's the million-dollar question. Is Texas still the land of opportunity, or has it become the land of overpriced risk? Would you buy a home today, knowing your insurance might vanish next year, or that your home value could drop by 10% in 6 months? Texas still holds promise, but only for those who look past the surface. Up next, a state that looks like a paradise on the outside, but could financially sink you from the inside. Number 4. Florida. Sunshine, beaches, palm trees. It's easy to see why millions dream of owning a home in Florida. But behind the dazzling ocean views and warm coastal breeze lies a state grappling with an insurance and climate crisis so severe, it's changing the entire real estate equation. Let's start with the data. Florida now has the highest homeowners insurance premiums in the U.S., averaging a staggering $4,984 per year. And in some coastal counties, it's pushing past $6,000 annually. Why? Because Florida is ground zero for hurricane destruction, flooding, and rising sea levels. And in 2025, insurers have had enough. Major companies, including State Farm and Farmers, have pulled out of the market or dramatically reduced coverage areas. Many Floridians now rely on Citizens Property Insurance, the state-run backup. But it's overburdened and underfunded, and that's terrifying news for anyone with a mortgage. Imagine this. You buy a $500,000 home near the coast. One storm season later, your insurer drops you, your premium triples, and your resale value plummets. Is it still paradise if you can't protect it? Even inland cities like Orlando and Tampa are seeing climate-driven price volatility. Combine that with rising HOA fees, increasing property taxes, and overdevelopment, and suddenly Florida starts looking less like a haven and more like a high-risk investment. So, ask yourself, would you bet your family's financial future on a state where one storm could sink your entire asset? Is your dream home still a dream if the insurance costs more than the mortgage? Up next, a state with a legacy of wealth. But in 2025, buyers are waking up to a harsh economic hangover. Number 3. New York. Once the crown jewel of American real estate, New York is now flashing warning signs to homebuyers bold enough to enter the market in 2025. Yes, the allure is still there. The iconic skyline, the cultural powerhouses, the promise of prestige. But for the average homebuyer, New York is becoming financially unsustainable. Let's talk about New York City. The median home price in Manhattan has hovered around $1.2 million, while outer boroughs like Brooklyn and Queens have seen prices surge without the rental yields to match. But here's the kicker. Experts are warning of a housing correction in the Empire State, fueled by remote work, rising crime in certain districts, and a growing exodus of middle-income earners. Meanwhile, property taxes outside the city, particularly in suburbs like Westchester and Nassau County, are among the highest in the nation, reaching over $12,000 a year on modest homes. And it's not just affordability. In upstate areas, climate volatility is pushing up insurance premiums. Aging housing stock and deferred infrastructure repairs mean higher maintenance costs. Now let's ask the tough questions. Would you invest in a market where population decline and high taxes are quietly eating away at demand? What happens when the next buyer is no longer willing or able to pay what you did? New York may be rich in history, but for today's buyer, it could be a ticking financial liability, wrapped in glamour. Next, a state once considered safe and steady, but in 2025, it's headed for a slow-motion housing crash. Number 2. New Jersey. For years, New Jersey sold itself as the quieter alternative to New York, offering suburban charm, access to Manhattan, and strong schools. On paper, it all looks ideal. But in 2025, the reality for homebuyers is anything but. Let's break it down. First, New Jersey has the highest property taxes in America, averaging 2.47% of a home's value annually. That's over $12,000 a year on a $500,000 home. Every year, forever. And yet, buyers keep moving in, or at least they used to. What's happening now is more subtle and more dangerous. Home prices in many counties have plateaued, while local governments struggle under debt burdens and aging infrastructure. That means higher utility fees, increased school levies, and surprise local taxes, all of which fall on homeowners' shoulders. And insurance? It's not Florida-level expensive, but rates have climbed 18% in the last 2 years, largely due to flood-prone zones along the Jersey Shore and outdated drainage systems inland. So here's what buyers are waking up to. You're not just buying a house, you're signing up for one of the most expensive places to own a home long-term. Equity gains are slowing, but your costs, they're accelerating. Now ask yourself, is that picture-perfect colonial in Bergen County still a smart buy, if it bleeds you dry in taxes, fees, and insurance for the next 30 years? New Jersey isn't crashing, it's quietly draining homeowners of financial flexibility, one hidden cost at a time. Up next, the number 1 state where buying a home in 2025 may be the biggest mistake of all. Number 1. California. Once the dream, now the warning label. California, long hailed as the ultimate destination for sun, innovation, and opportunity, has officially become the worst state to buy a home in 2025, and not just because of the price. Let's start with the obvious. The median home price in California is $784,840, the second highest in the nation. In coastal cities like San Francisco and Santa Monica, that number skyrockets past $1.2 million. For many, buying a home here means stretching finances to the breaking point. But wait, it gets worse. Climate risk is redefining everything. Wildfires, droughts, floods, and even earthquakes have put large parts of California on high alert zones. As a result, major insurance providers like State Farm and Allstate have exited the market for new homeowners policies. If you can find coverage, it's likely to cost $5,000 to $9,000 a year, or more. What happens when your dream home is uninsurable? And while job markets remain strong in tech-heavy areas, massive outmigration is already underway. Over 500,000 people have left California in the last 3 years, and that trend is accelerating. Families, remote workers, even retirees, all fleeing rising costs, tax burdens, and housing instability. Now consider this. What happens to home values when buyers leave faster than they arrive? Would you risk your savings on $1 million home that may one day sit on a fire line, with no insurer willing to cover it? California isn't just expensive, it's volatile, vulnerable, and for many, unsustainable. And that's why it claims the number 1 spot on our list of states where you shouldn't buy a home in 2025. Let's face it, buying a home is one of the biggest financial decisions of your life. And in 2025, the rules have changed. It's no longer just about square footage, school districts, or how trendy the neighborhood is. It's about risk. Climate risk, insurance collapse, tax pressure, economic decline, and whether your dream home is built on solid ground or sinking fast. From skyrocketing insurance premiums in Florida and California, to crippling property taxes in Illinois and New Jersey, to housing markets that are cooling faster than expected in states like Texas and Colorado. These are real threats that too many buyers overlook until it's too late. So what now? Do your homework. Evaluate long-term affordability, not just the listing price, and stay informed, because the market isn't just shifting, it's transforming. At the Globe Realty, we're not here to sell you hype. We're here to arm you with truth. And sometimes the smartest move isn't where to buy, but where not to. Tell us in the comments, which of these states would you still consider buying in, and why? And if you've been burned by a home purchase in one of these risky states, share your story. Let's help others avoid the same mistake. Like this video if it opened your eyes, subscribe for more brutally honest real estate insights, and turn on notifications. Because the next housing update could change everything. This is the Globe Realty, where the truth meets the property line.